Could we have everyone's attention, please? If you would take your seats. Okay, attention, please. Need your cooperation. Take your seats and ask for your silence. Good morning again. My name is Jim Schenkel. I will be serving as your Master of Ceremonies for the program this morning. We'd like to begin by inviting Pastor Edward Long of Antioch Baptist Church to come forward.
Pastor Woodard was called away in an emergency. On behalf of all the collective coalition of concerned clergy, we thank you for coming, sharing in this great celebration, and we want you to have a wonderful time today in fellowship with your sisters and brothers, and we want you to come back tonight to the 6 o'clock services at Union Missionary Baptist Church. We thank you. Of course, we are very grateful to Ball State University and all the others who have helped, all of our sponsors and all of those who have contributed in whatever way you can, in either financial or in your prayers. And we do need your prayers. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And let's continue to try our best to work together for the good of this community and for good of our whole nation. Thank you very much.
This time I would like to ask Dr. Susanna Rivera Mills to come forward. Dr. Mills serves as a provost and executive vice president of academic affairs at Ball State University.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. And welcome to our Mlk Breakfast. I am so pleased to be here with you this morning. This is my first MLK Day in Muncie. I joined Ball State about 7 months ago, and I want you to know that I am very grateful for the way that the university and the community have embraced my family and me. I am honored to be here with you today to celebrate the life and the work of Dr. King and to pay tribute to him. Like you, I am taking this opportunity to reflect on what this day means historically and in our world today. So let me take you back in history for a moment. This is not a black holiday, it is a people's holiday, said Coretta Scott King, after President Ronald Reagan signed the King Holiday Bill into law on November 1983. But in the complicated history of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, it has only recently been a holiday for all the people, all the time. The origins of the holiday are mired in racism, politics, and conspiracy. The first call for a national holiday, coming from Congressman John Conyers to celebrate the life of Dr. King, occurred just a few short days after his assassination. 3 years later, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference presented Congress with a petition signed by more than 3 million people supporting a King holiday. The bill languished in Congress for 8 years, unable to gain enough support until President Jimmy Carter vowed to support a King holiday. Reinvigorated by the president's support, Coretta Scott King testified before joint hearings of Congress and organized a nationwide lobby to support the bill. Yet, in 1979, the Conyers-King holiday bill was defeated in the House by just 5 votes. Coretta continued her fight for approval of a national holiday, testifying before Congress several more times and mobilizing governors, mayors, and city council members across the nation to make the passage of a King holiday bill part of their agenda. Singer Stevie Wonder became a prominent proponent and released the song Happy Birthday in 1980. It became a rallying cry. He and Mrs. King went on to present a second petition to Congress, this one containing more than 6 million signatures of support. Their work finally paid off when the House passed the bill with a vote of 338 to 90. The bill faced a tougher fight in Senate, however, with a handful of senators vehemently opposing the bill. Nevertheless, the Senate majority prevailed and President Reagan signed the bill into law in November 1983. Even so, the first official holiday wasn't observed until January 1986. In 1994, Congress designated the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday as a national day of service. The Indiana General Assembly in 1996 established legislation for a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Indiana Holiday Commission, which is tasked with commemorating Dr. King's birthday with programs or activities that honor his life and works to reflect Dr. King's philosophy and dream of freedom, justice, and racial equality through nonviolent social change. Ball State's efforts to honor Dr. King's legacy can be traced back to a proclamation brought forth by students and signed by President Worthen in January of 1985, which helped to create a Martin Luther King Jr. Day of celebration during our Unity Week. In the early 1990s, our student government formally asked our faculty to include discussions of Dr. King's teachings and life in their classes to celebrate this holiday. It was February 1961, at a speech on the campus of New York University, where Dr. King said, "Human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. The journey to this point has not been easy. It required determination, persistence, and resilience. We know the journey's not over, and there is much work that remains to be done. But as I look out at this room on this day and reflect on who I am and the privilege that I hold as a Latina serving as provost and executive vice president of this wonderful university, I am confident that our passion and dedication will help us reach Dr. King's goals and a holiday for all the people, all of the time. This holiday will be used for service and celebration of justice for all. And today, I invite all of you to join me in this celebration. Thank you and welcome again.
At this time, I would like to call forward to present a proclamation our Honorable Mayor, Dennis Tyler.
Well, good morning, everybody. You know it's cold when you're walking inside and you can feel the cold coming up through the soles of your shoes. And right now it's 12 below zero outside. For everybody's information, if you're not aware of it, all of our fire stations in the city of Muncie are open for warming centers. Anybody that needs to get into them, if they need a cup of hot soup or they need any assistance. City Hall is also open for the next 24 hours the same way. Our public safety officers are ready to respond any way that we need to. So please be aware of that. And the number, if you have a friend or anybody that's needing assistance, 288-HELP. It's really pretty simple to do. Thank you so much, Dr. Mills, for your words. Those words are so important today. Before I get into the proclamation, there is a gentleman here today that I like to recognize every year that we're having the Martin Luther King holiday and celebration, there's two people that always should be recognized in the city of Muncie, ladies and gentlemen, and that is former State Senator Allie Craycraft and former State Representative Hurley Goodall. It was their leadership in the Indiana General Assembly that brought the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday to the state of Indiana. And we should all be very thankful for that. And as I get into the proclamation and what I believe that we're all here for today in this proclamation is, and this is just my opinion and just my opinion only, and if I offend anybody in the room, I apologize. But I respectfully challenge the opinion that Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech has anything to do with creating barriers and building walls of obstruction in the United States of America. There's nothing in that speech that speaks to barriers and walls. What it speaks to is the same thing that he did when he was speaking to the East Berlin and West Berlin Wall. It's how do we bring barriers down for our children to all feel welcome and be a part of inclusion and diversity. The proclamation says all of that in it. Whereas the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a dedicated advocate for justice and equality for all of God's children. And whereas 50 years after his death, Dr. King's influential and compelling words continue to inspire many who share his dream, strength, and willingness to challenge all of America to eradicate the barriers and to live united. And whereas in 1983 it became law that the third Monday in January be designated a federal holiday in honor of Dr. King. The observance of this holiday began in 1986. In 2017 years after the law's official passage, all states observed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday. And whereas Dr. King's endeavors for civil rights and his noble quest for equality for all Americans deserves to be celebrated. His advocacy for nonviolence, compassion, inclusion, respect, universal equality, and justice for all continues to serve as a powerful model to unite all people while breaking down the barriers that continue to divide us as a nation. And whereas the city of Muncie strives to eliminate racism and all forms of discrimination by encouraging diversity and equality for all of its citizens. Now therefore I, the Honorable Dennis Tyler, Mayor of this great city of Muncie, Indiana, do hereby proclaim this day in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. By this action, let it be known that I, as the Mayor of the city of Muncie, Indiana, urge all citizens to observe this day and every day with an unbounded commitment to equality, tolerance, service, and justice in our community in honor of Dr. King, in witness whereof this 19th day of January, 2019. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Thank you so much.
Now we have a special treat for you, a musical selection by Synovia Garrett. Miss Garrett.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get the mic in a second. I will not sing without a mic, so. Yeah. I'm holding it. It's the red button. Oh, there we go. Hi. Again. All right. I see some very beautiful people here this morning. I see some very resilient people here this morning. And I'm going to go through a story with you. Is that okay? In the form of song. I'm not going to talk. I promise. Not that much. All right? Good? Y'all can laugh. It's okay. This is a good day. All right? This is just me breaking the ice right now. I want to feel good while I'm up here, and I want y'all to feel good as well. Here we go. I wish I wish I could say all the things I should say. Say them loud, say them clear, for the whole wide world to hear. Oh, I wish I was free. I wish I was free. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the doubts that would keep us apart. Oh, I wish you could know what it feels like to be me. Then you'll see and agree that every man should be free. Then you'll see and agree that every man should be free. Yeah. Then you will see and agree, oh, that every man should be free. So, April 3rd, 1968, Martin Luther King gave this speech where it was literally the day before he was assassinated, and it was talking about him being and seeing this mountaintop. And strangely, or maybe it wasn't strangely, at the end of his speech, he kind of got into this space where it seemed like he knew that this was his last day on earth. Well, he said something about seeing the coming of the glory of the Lord and seeing this mountaintop. And what I think was happening there, it could have been prophetic, of course, but I think what was happening there was he was showing us this perspective on life that says, I have to live today. So I'm going to challenge us all to live today, to live for this moment, because we don't know what tomorrow holds, right? So we're going to switch it up a little bit. Sing on, sing for the years, sing for the laughter, sing for the tears. Sing with me, sing for today. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord will take you away. Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord gonna take you away. Dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on, dream on. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord gonna take you away. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord gonna take you away. Maybe tomorrow the good Lord gonna take you away. So lastly, I don't think we've ever done this at the breakfast, but I'm going to have you repeat after me. Can we all sing this song together? All right, this is what I'm going to do. It says, I know I can be what I want to be if I work hard at it. Yeah, I'll be where I want to be. I know I can. That sounds good. Be what I want to be, yeah. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. One more time. I know I can be what I want to be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I want to be. Oh, I know I can be what I want to be, yeah. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I wanna be. Be, boys and girls, listen up. You can be anything in the world if God be trust. An architect, doctor, maybe an actress. It takes all you got, yeah, it takes much practice, yeah. I met this woman, she's becoming a star. She was very beautiful, leaving people in awe. If you believe what I'm saying, believe it now. Put your hand to your chest and take this vow. I know I can be what I wanna be, yeah. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I wanna be. Oh, I know I can be where I wanna be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I wanna be. I know I can be where I wanna be. If I work hard at it, I'll be where I wanna be. So I wish we knew how it could feel to be free. I wish we could take all those chains holding me. I wish I could say everything I should say. Say it loud, say it clear, for the whole wide world to hear. This is off. This is off. Thank you.
Every program just dreads when somebody goes off script. We're going to introduce the Student Youth Recognition Awards next. And there are students here from Burris and Cowan, and I'm not being selective, but I get to serve as a guest teacher at those two schools occasionally. And everybody knows that teachers have classroom rules, and one of my rules, rule number 6, they may recall, is smile. So I'm asking all of you, did you see that beautiful smile that she had up here while she was singing? She should see that reflected back in all of you. So as the people come up forward, smile back at them and make them feel good. So now we'd like to do the Mlk Youth Recognition. I'd like to ask Stephen Edwards, who's the interim superintendent of Muncie Public Schools, and Rhonda Ward, who's assistant principal at Muncie Central High School, to come forward. Thank you.
I'm also asking Diane Phillips, our assistant superintendent, to join us. Our board president was to assist today, but he's under the weather, so there we go. So Miss Phillips will be helping present the awards. Certainly it's my pleasure and honor to be here today. What better fitting way to celebrate this day and to recognize our students. On behalf of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration Planning Committee and the superintendents throughout Delaware County, I would like to congratulate all of the top academic students in our county, in Delaware County. The students being recognized this morning are all seniors and were selected for this honor due to their outstanding academic achievement. When I call each student's name, I would like the student to come forward to receive their certificate. Also, I would like to ask their parents and our school administrators to also stand and receive recognition. Start with Burris Laboratory School, Principal Don Miller. Students, Wilson Avila. Nicholas Cruxton. and Maya Morrison. Cowan Junior Senior High School, Principal Patrick Bloom. Noah Harrington. Lily Johnson. And Laura McDaniel. Dale Bell Junior Senior High School, Principal Eric Douglas. Taylor Gillum. Muncie Central High School, Principal Chris Walker. Chris. Zachary Abril. Samuel Ball. Tiana Dunn. Tara Horst.
One of my first grade students.
Yorktown High School, Principal Stacy Brewer. I know Stacy here. Students, Lena Barami. Caleb Bonsack. Macy Brammer. And Mantra Raju. Again, let's give all these students a final round of applause. Are there any of the top students here today that we have missed calling their names? Anyone here? From Dale Bell Junior Senior High School, Andrea Hankins, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to invite Bishop Keith O'Neill from Destiny Center to come up and introduce our speaker.
Morning, everyone. President Jeffrey S. Mearns became the 17th president of Ball State University in May of 2017. President Mearns is honored to serve as president during Ball State's centennial year. He has enjoyed attending numerous centennial events as part of the year-long celebration of this milestone anniversary. Under President Mearns' leadership, the university has developed a new strategic plan, Destination 2040, our flight path, was approved by the Board of Trustees in December 2018. The plan provides a strategic framework for the university with 5 long-term goals and a set of imperatives to be executed by 2024. President Mearns is committed to advancing the university's relationship with the community. At his installation in September 2017, he launched the Better Together initiative. A highlight of this enhanced support for Muncie is the university partnership with Muncie Community Schools. President Mearns earned his undergraduate degree in English from Yale University and a Juris Doctorate from the University of Virginia. After a legal career that included serving as a federal prosecutor, President Mearns began his career in higher education. Prior to coming to Ball State, he served in academic and administrative roles at Cleveland State University and as president of Northern Kentucky University. He and his wife, Jennifer, have 5 children. Let's give a Martin Luther King Jr. Day welcome to President of Ball State University, Jeffrey Mearns.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. And Bishop O'Neill, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you also for your service to our community and your friendship to me and to my family. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to serve as the president of Ball State University, and it's an honor. It really is an honor to be invited to speak to you on this special occasion at this community celebration. But in the midst of clergy, I have a confession to make. I feel some pressure. It's intimidating. It's intimidating to speak at a program honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was one of the most inspiring and eloquent speakers in the history of our country, perhaps in the history of the world. So there's some pressure. But the pressure is more personal. The pressure I feel this morning hits much closer to home. See, last year I was scheduled to give the welcome at this breakfast, but I had some minor surgery just before the event, so my lovely wife Jennifer agreed to stand in for me. And I heard from everyone in attendance that she was an excellent speaker. And I heard from several people, Julius, where are you? That she was outstanding. I understand the implication of what you said, Julius. So forget about rivaling Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm not even the best speaker in my own home. But you invited me to speak. You got up on this cold morning. So we're just going to muddle through this together for about 15 minutes. How about that? So in preparing my remarks this morning, I reviewed the text of some of Dr. King's most memorable speeches and some of his most memorable writings. He was, as I said a moment ago, an excellent orator, and he had extraordinary command for our language. His words and his thoughts drew directly from his personal experiences and from his personal observations. Dr. King delivered his first national address. It was called Give Us the Ballot. He delivered that speech at the Prayer Pilgrimage for Freedom in 1957. He was just 28 years old. But despite his youth, he articulated a compelling vision for equal access to the ballot, for voter justice. His vision and his oratory helped inspire a movement that eventually eliminated the legal barriers that prevented black men and black women from exercising their constitutional right to vote. Some people are trying to reinstitute those barriers, so the work goes on. In 1963, after Dr. King was arrested and sent to jail in Alabama for protesting racial segregation without a permit, he sat in solitary confinement, and he wrote his famous letter from the Birmingham jail. As you probably know, Dr. King wrote that letter on whatever paper he could get his hands on. He scribbled his thoughts in the margins of newspapers that were smuggled into him. He wrote on toilet paper and scraps of paper towels, and he gave those bits and pieces of paper to his lawyers, who took them to Dr. King's chief of staff, whose secretary typed them up for Dr. King. Many historians and many of us have described Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail as the guiding force of the civil rights movement. This letter was Dr. King's sound defense of nonviolent resistance to racism, a defense that contained the famous quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." His letter would become a rallying cry for persistence, a rallying cry for persistence in pursuit of equality. This letter set the stage for Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, which he delivered just a few months later in Washington, D.C. When Dr. King took the podium on August 28, 1963, he stood in front of the statue of the president who had signed the Emancipation Proclamation, a president whom Dr. King admired and a president whom he often invoked in his writings and in his speeches. In front of a crowd of more than 250,000 people, Dr. King spoke about President Lincoln and about the Emancipation Proclamation. Dr. King spoke about the beacon of hope this proclamation had been for so many slaves. But after speaking for a while from a written text about the ongoing struggles of his brothers and his sisters in the African American community, Dr. King closed with a spontaneous and impassioned riff about a dream that he had. A dream that one day the sons of former slaves and former slave owners would sit down together at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood. A dream that one day the South would be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. A dream for his children to live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but rather by the content of their character. Dr. King's words were powerful, and his words had great power because they were personal. Dr. King's words touched our hearts because he spoke from his heart. We were inspired to dream of a brighter future, of a world that will be more peaceful and more just. We were, and we continue to be inspired by that dream because Dr. King shared his dream with all of us. So in that spirit, I want to share with you some of my own personal experiences. Permit me to tell you about some of the people who influenced my values and who shaped my perspectives. In the spirit of Dr. King, I will speak from my heart. Now, of course, I won't be as eloquent as he was. That's not possible. But I will be genuine. And I got some advice from Paris McCurdy, and based on that advice, I will just be me. Although he looks pretty good, doesn't he? So first, let me tell you about my parents. My father was the first in our family to earn a college degree. His father was a nightclub singer in New York City, and his mother was a secretary. After my father graduated from college, he served in the Navy. Then my father went on and graduated from law school. The educational opportunities that my father received, they transformed his life. And those opportunities changed the trajectory of our entire family. After my father graduated from law school in 1958, he committed his entire professional life, 40 years, to teaching. 40 years to teaching as a law professor. And he regularly taught courses on civil rights and discrimination. But his commitment to education extended far beyond the walls of his classrooms and far beyond the boundaries of any university campus. In 1961, just 3 years after he graduated from law school, my father was appointed to serve as a consultant to the United States Commission on Civil Rights. For 2 years, in the early 1960s, my father traveled across the South to prepare a report on the status of school desegregation in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus the Board of Education. 15 years later, in the mid-1970s, my father was appointed by a federal judge to draft the court-ordered plan to desegregate the public schools in Cleveland, Ohio. The plan that my father drafted was approved by the judge. Now, the potential positive results of this plan were impeded by a school board that was more interested in preserving the status quo and protecting corporate interest. They were more interested in those issues as opposed to improving the educational opportunities for poor and minority children in Cleveland. But my father persisted. My father fervently believed that every child had a fundamental right to a quality education, not just the children of wealthy white parents, but every child. Every child. So now let me say a few things about my mother. When my parents were married, my mother was only 19 years old. My parents then had 9 children, 2 sons and 7 daughters. I'm the 5th of 9. I am the middle child. Three older sisters, 4 younger ones, right, Christina? After raising 9 children, my mother then dedicated herself to public service. She served 10 years on the City Council of Shaker Heights, Ohio, and then she was elected as the first woman mayor of that city. She served 2 4-year terms as the mayor. Thank you. Now, some of you may know of Shaker Heights. Shaker Heights is a racially and socioeconomically diverse inner ring suburb of Cleveland. According to census data, about 53% of the population is white, and black residents make up 34% of the population in Shaker Heights. As an elected official, my mother wasn't preoccupied with building shopping centers and office complexes. She understood that those projects were beneficial to local and regional economic development, and she supported them. But my mother was much more interested in building a community center for senior citizens, and playgrounds for children, and playrooms for toddlers. And she nurtured genuine relationships with the people in her city. To my mother, the citizens of Shaker Heights weren't voters. They were her friends, and they were her neighbors. My mother was respected in her city, but my mother was admired. At the risk of being immodest, my mother was beloved in the African American community. Many years ago, at an event similar to this one, my mother received the annual Dr. King Award for advancing social justice and equality in her community. And if my parents were still alive, if they were with us today, they would be comfortable in this room. They would cherish the opportunity to visit with you over breakfast, and they would be asking you lots of questions about your family. And my parents would also have relished the chance to tell you about their family, their 9 children and their 31 grandchildren. Now, like many of you here in Indiana, I know, my parents were humble about their own accomplishments. But like many of us, my parents sure like to brag on their children and their grandchildren. And so they'd probably show you photos. They'd show you photos of their family, and from those photos, you'd learn that 2 of their daughters, 2 of my sisters, married African American men. And from those photos, you'd learn that 2 of their daughters, 2 of my sisters, married Hispanic American men. And my parents were proud. They were very proud that their family reflected the beautiful diversity of our country and the beautiful diversity that is here with us in this wonderful room this morning. And they'd be proud of another thing, but they probably wouldn't talk about it because they would be concerned that it would sound immodest. But they would be proud that they instilled certain values in their children and their grandchildren. Through their actions, not their words, but through their actions, my parents taught us to respect all people. They taught us to strive to understand people who have had a different life experience from ours. My parents expected us to be compassionate. They taught us to share our talents and our good fortune with others. They taught us to be generous. And they taught us that life is a gift. They taught us that life is a precious gift that is meant to be shared in service to other people. So as you can see, my parents had a significant influence in shaping my values and my personal perspectives. Their careers, their public lives also influenced my professional life. After I graduated from law school, I began to pursue a career in public service, as you heard in the introduction. I had the good fortune to serve for 9 years as a federal prosecutor in the United States Department of Justice. The first 6 years, I was an assistant United States attorney in the Eastern District of New York. That district encompasses Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, and all of Long Island. And I mostly prosecuted traditional organized crime cases, the mafia. And while we were prosecuting mobsters in Brooklyn and Queens and Staten Island, that was a target-rich environment. I finished my career in the Justice Department prosecuting domestic terrorists. I was one of the principal trial lawyers who successfully prosecuted Terry Nichols for his role in helping Timothy McVeigh bomb the federal building in Oklahoma City. Thank you. Together, they murdered 168 men, women, and children of all races and religions. After serving as a federal prosecutor, Jennifer and I moved to Shaker Heights, and I entered private practice. For 7 years, I represented corporations and wealthy executives who were being investigated and prosecuted for white-collar crimes. I also represented a young black boy who was wrongfully convicted of murder. His name is Anthony Harris. My law partner and I were able to persuade the state appellate court to overturn Anthony's conviction, a conviction that was a miscarriage of justice, and to set Anthony free. And then in a federal civil rights case, we were able to secure nearly $4 million for Anthony from the police and the prosecutor for the injuries that they had inflicted upon him. Thank you. But throughout my career, as you can tell, many of my cases received lots of attention in the media, in newspaper, and television. But I want to tell you about another case, a case that didn't generate any public interest. The case involved a man named Robert Walton. I was appointed by a federal judge to represent Robert because in addition to clients who paid me to represent them, from time to time I accepted appointments by federal judges to represent indigent defendants, women and men who couldn't afford to hire a lawyer. I was appointed to represent Robert in a large multi-defendant federal drug case. And unlike Anthony Harris, Robert wasn't innocent, and the federal government had the tapes to prove it. I met with Robert for the first time in a detention facility in downtown Cleveland. We spent some time talking about the case. Robert was candid and forthcoming and honest. He knew he was guilty, but he had a simple request: to get him the best possible deal that I could. But that was going to be a challenge. Because as is common, far too common for many young black men in America, Robert had 2 prior convictions for drug possession and distribution when he was a very young man. They were very minor cases. He had served virtually no time in prison. And since those convictions, he had turned his life around. He had maintained a decent job, he had gotten married, and he was raising a family. Robert was a good man who had made some mistakes. Robert was human. But here's the problem. Those 2 prior convictions made him a career offender under federal law. If he were convicted in the federal case, the mandatory minimum sentence under that federal career offender statute, the mandatory minimum sentence was 25 years in a federal prison. The judge could even send Robert to a federal prison for the rest of his life. Robert understood his predicament, but he had a simple but optimistic request. Robert told me about his family. He told me that he had 2 children, including a son who was 12 years old. And Robert said that he hoped he could be released from prison before his son had children of his own. Then Robert told me that his son was a good Pee-wee football player, a really good Pee-wee football player. And Robert said this. He said, Robert told me that he would love to see his son play football one more time. Just one more time. I first set out then to persuade the prosecutor not to file a notice of Robert's 2 prior state court convictions so that it wouldn't trigger that federal career offender penalty. After many discussions, the prosecutor agreed. But we weren't done, because under the federal sentencing guidelines, Robert was still facing a sentence of 12 to 15 years in prison. So I asked the prosecutor for permission to file what we call a downward departure motion. This is a motion that would permit, but not require, but it would permit the judge to give Robert a more lenient sentence than those federal sentencing guidelines. Now, federal prosecutors at that time in the early 2000s during the Bush administration, they rarely agreed to those requests from defense lawyers. But this prosecutor considered Robert's unusual circumstances, and he agreed to let me file the motion. To this day, I still don't know why he did it. The judge assigned to the case was a notoriously strict sentencing judge, so I thought perhaps the prosecutor just assumed that the judge would deny my motion for leniency. Or maybe the prosecutor was just a decent, fair person. From my experience, I know that many of them are. So prior to sentencing, I filed many letters from Robert's friends and families and employers, and I filed the kind of sentencing memo that my other clients paid me a lot of money to prepare. At the end of the sentencing hearing, the judge sentenced Robert to only 3 years in prison. Now, 3 years would be a long time for you or for me. But compared to 25 years in prison, it was a relief from Robert. It was an extraordinary result. It was a just result. There were no newspaper reporters who covered the case, and I didn't receive any awards for this work. But what I received was much more gratifying. Robert and his family thanked me for my service, thanked me for my work. And still, to this day, I have the simple yet enduring satisfaction of knowing that I had enabled Robert to see his son play football one more time. Just one more time. That's what mattered to Robert. And my service had made a positive difference in the lives of one decent man and his young son. So why did I decide to tell you this story? And what is the lesson that I draw from the lives of my parents, lives that were inspired by Dr. King? The lesson is one of persistence. The lesson is one of hope. The lesson is one of optimism. The lesson is one about a goal that is achievable for each and every one of us in this room. We don't have to be a national hero, an international hero like Dr. King. We don't have to be the inspirational advocate who changed the course of history. We don't have to be a martyr for civil rights and for social justice. Dr. King, most of all, Dr. King understood that those expectations are not reasonable for the rest of us. But Dr. King expected that each day, through our work, that each day, through our simple acts of kindness and compassion, each one of us can remove a brick from the walls that divide us. And each day we can use those bricks to build the foundation of a community, the foundation of a country that will be more peaceful, that will be more just. Each one of us, every day through small actions can build a community that welcomes all people, all women, and all men. We can build a community that welcomes all people, rich and poor. We can build a community that welcomes all people, black, brown, and white. We can build a community that embraces all people, whether they are straight or gay, and no matter how they identify themselves, and no matter who they love. Let's build that community. Let's build that community right here in Muncie, Indiana. Let's build that community right here and right now. Thank you very much.
I know you students were listening intently. It's your charge, your generation, to help this all go forward. This time I'd like to ask Pastor Andrea Mitchell to come forward representing the Mlk Events Committee.
I know you just did it, but can we put our hands together for our president? Wonderful words. One thing I appreciate about him is his genuineness, and so I thank you once again. I'd like to come up here to recognize the Mlk committee. There's a lot of things that go behind the scenes to make this breakfast possible and make this day possible. Will all the committee please stand so that we can be recognized and honored? Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, you may be seated. The committee is amazing. I am tasked from the CCC to be the chair of the committee, but I'm less of a chair and just a partner, and so we do appreciate the committee so much for what they do. Is John Beatty in the would you just step over for a second? One of the things that the CCC also does, instead of just doing the breakfast and the night services, we have a scholarship fund that we give out to students. And so if anyone wants to give and donate today, you can give to John, and he will take that. And we want to make sure that we are investing not just into the community, but specifically into our kids. So if you would like to donate, please do that today. Thank you very much. God bless you.
I'd like to invite Bobby Seal to come forward. Bobby is the director of the Multicultural Center here at Ball State University, and he has a special guest to introduce.
Good morning. So today I have the pleasure of introducing Reverend Larry Edmonds. He lives in Marion, Indiana with his wife Carol of 25 years. Together they have 6 children. 4 girls and 2 boys, all grown with a total of 11 grandchildren. Larry is retired from the City of Marion Fire Department after 30 years of service. As a firefighter, he was the first African American to become an EMT and also one of the first African American men in Marion to be placed on the scuba diving team. He was an engineer on the fire department, and he is also an associated pastor of the Greater Second Baptist Church in Marion, Indiana. He's an entrepreneur and owner of Edmonds Grooming Shop. He graduated from New York School of Dog Grooming. In his spare time, he loves working out, weightlifting, swimming, and running. He has participated in the Indianapolis Mini Marathon since 2001. Reverend Edmonds has been reciting the Dr. King speech for about 15 years. So besides reciting the speech in Marion, Indiana, Larry has recited Dr. King's speeches in Memphis, Tennessee, Dallas, Texas, Washington, D.C., Indianapolis, Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, and Las Vegas. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Edmonds, Reverend Edmonds, to come to the stage to recite the Dr. Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech.
I am honeymoon happy. Check 1, 2, check. And peacock proud to be in your midst today. Amen. I want to thank Bobby for the invite. Can y'all hear me? Thank Bobby for the invite. I'd like to introduce my wife. Just raise your hands a little bit. I'd like to tell everybody wherever I go, out of 8 kids my mom and dad conceded, I am the youngest and the best looking one in the family. Mom and dad say the best for the last. Amen. One of my favorite scripture is Proverbs, the 3rd chapter, verses 5 and 6, where it says, trust in the Lord with all of thine heart, and lean not to thy own understanding. In all of thy ways, you ought to acknowledge him. And when you do that, he'll do something for you. He'll direct your path. Ain't the Lord good? Won't he make a way for you? Amen, amen. My mom and dad only had a 3rd and 4th grade education. When I was in the 4th grade, my teacher told me that, she said, Emma, you ain't never gonna be nothing. So I ran home after I got off the bus, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I don't need to go back to school no more. She said, why not? I said, my teacher told me I'm never going to be nothing. So I had that in the back of my mind from the 4th grade all the way up to the 9th grade. I met a gentleman by the name of Hubert Clark. He was a DVM, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. I had worked for him about 2 weeks, and he said, Larry, you know, you got initiative. I didn't know what initiative was, but it sounded good. So I went along with it. Amen. Very happy to meet the president of Ball State. Whether you know it or not, I drive one of the shuttle bus for your school. I'm on the green loop, the blue loop, the green loop, and the red loop, and the orange loop. Got me running all over. I don't know what loop I'm on until I get there. Somebody asked me, said, how do you learn all those loops so quick? I said, I put in the Lord's hand. When you put in God's hand, everything is all right. As has already been stated, Bobby asked me not to be long, so I'm going to condense to speak. I know you're all ready to go. I'm going to condense the speech a little bit. I asked my wife, I said, where do you think I ought to start? She said, well, if you want to start. So the speech was given August 28, 1963 in Washington, D.C. from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. There was over 250,000 people that were gathered that had come from all over the land and country. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whom somebody's shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came of the great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been sealed in the flame of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to the end of the long night of captivity. But we must face the tragic fact that 100 years later, the Negroes are still not free. 100 years later, the Negroes are still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and by the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, Negroes still live on a lonely island of poverty while in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, Negroes still lingering in the corner of the American society while found himself in exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize an appalling condition. In a sense, we have come to our nation capital to catch a check. When the architect of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to follow heirs. This note was a promise which guaranteed all men, yes, black men as well as white men, the inalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that Americans have defaulted on this promissory note insofar as our citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, Americans have given the Negro people a bad check, a check which come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in this great vault of opportunity of this nation. So we have come here today to catch a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind Americans of the furious urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off, nor to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. It will be fatal for our nation to overlook the urgency of the now and to underestimate the determination of the Negro. This sweltering summer of the Negro logistic discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but the beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam will now be content. We'll have a rude awakening if our nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negroes are granted his or her citizenship right. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shake the foundation of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there's something I must say to my people today who stands on a warm threshold which leads into the policy of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let's not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic height of meeting physical force with soul force. There are those that are asking devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We will never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels and the highways, cannot gain lodging in the hotels in the city. We will never be satisfied until justice rain down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I'm mindful to you that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from area While your quest for freedom left you battered by the storm of persecution and staggering by the winds of persecution. And I say to you today, my friend, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold the truth to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream today that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slave and sons of former slave owners one day be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream today that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, a state sweltering with the heat of oppression, will one day be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream today that one day my 4 little children will live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today that one day, right there down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor lip drifting with the words of interproposition and nullification. One day right there down in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls and be able to walk together as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today that one day every valley will be exalted, every hill and mountain will be made low, the rough place will be made plain, and the crooked place will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all the flesh shall see it together. This is my hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we'll be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a storm of hope. With this faith, we'll be able to struggle together, go to jail together, stand up for freedom together, knowing that one day we'll all be free. It will be the day we can all sing together. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
I didn't see him come in, so I'm not sure. Mr. Chris Fluke, is he here? In the back there. I'd like to have Chris come up and tell you about a project he's been working on.
Hi, my name is Chris Fluke. I teach here at Ball State. I'm also the president of the Delaware County Historical Society. And if you remember me from last year at this breakfast, I announced a project that we had were planning to build a statue of Hurley Goodall and have it put in Muncie. And so over the past year, the steering committee partnered with the Community Enhancement Projects and Muncie Arts and Culture Council, and we've raised $100,000 to be able to make that project a reality. So in November, we commissioned the artist Bill Wolf. He does a lot of Hoosier greats. He's based out of Terre Haute to begin work. If everything goes according to plan, he'll take the mold to Sinceris Foundry in March, where they will cast the statue, and then it will be brought here to Muncie and then put up in Fireman's Park, which is at the corner of Madison and Jackson, right across the street from Fire Station Number 1, where Hurley served for part of his career. And if everything goes according to plan in terms of the deadlines, on May 23rd, which will be Hurley's 92nd birthday, we will dedicate the statue, and we're hoping that everybody can come and celebrate not only the statue, but obviously Hurley's legacy. One small thing, though, we have enough to do the statue, but we're a little short on our maintenance fund. So we're trying to raise another 10 grand to park either at the Historical Society or maybe the Community Foundation that can be used as resource to clean the statue. If God forbid anything ever happens to the statue, it's there to make sure that it's saved. So what we've done is we've made these busts. If your school or your business or your church is interested, you can purchase them online at DelawareCountyHistory.org, and they're modeled in the torso part of the statue. We also have made smaller ones that are a little cheaper, that about a third of the size if you're interested as well. So, and after the material costs, all of that proceeds goes towards the maintenance fund. So Hurley's memory and his legacy are there not only in the statue, but are preserved 25, 50, and 100 years down the road. So thank you.
I believe Chris was one of my wife's former students, right? All right. That's where he got his so I would like to ask Bobby Steele to come back up. He's going to do something very special for us and lead us on the back of your program.
All right, good morning again. And actually, I'm going to be inviting someone else to do something special for us. I'm just going to introduce the person. I also want to make a quick announcement to remind everyone, if you had noticed, that unfortunately for the second year in a row, the MLK March has been canceled due to the weather. But keep doing what you can do within your power despite the march. So, Lift Every Voice and Sing, often called the Black National Anthem, was written as a poem by James Weldon Johnson, and then set to music by his brother John Rosamond Johnson in 1899. It was first performed in public by the Johnsons' hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, as a part of a celebration of Lincoln's birthday on February 12, 1900, by a choir of 500 school children at the segregated Stanton School, where James Weldon Johnson happened to be the principal. It has been adopted by the NAACP as its official song. Today, Lift Every Voice and Sing is one of the most cherished songs of African American civil rights movements. At this time, I would like to invite Zenobia Garrett to the stage to lead us in song.
I'm back. All right. If you could honor this by standing up, thank you so much. You do have the words in the back for those of y'all who do not know it yet. Next year, you'll know it, right? Yes, next year. Okay. All right. And you can just sing with me. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. We're going to say, sing a song. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
I'd like to ask Pastor Andrea Mitchell, who is chairman of the committee that's made all of this possible, come up.
Let's all stand. We are getting ready to dismiss. Remember, clergy, if you can meet for the final picture, and also those who are going to give to the scholarship fund, you can make it out to CCCC 4Cs. Let's bow our heads. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. Help us to model diversity, not just in speech and not just on special days, but in every day of our life, not just nationally and locally, but individually. In Jesus' name, and bless us all and keep us safe. Amen. You are dismissed. God bless you.
The clergy is in the music lounge across the hall, down a short distance. Go straight across the hall here. Straight across the hall.